Okay, so welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. As you can see from the front screen there, tonight we're talking about grow yourself to grow your business. So firstly, can I just double check that everybody can see that screen okay? Hopefully, and you're not just looking at a blank screen. Excellent. Thanks, Natasha. Thanks, Peter. Good. Okay, so what am I going on about there? Well, tonight, as you can see, there's number 6 out of a series of 8 that I do. I normally try and do one a week, but with the conference in Madrid last week, and we stayed over a couple of days, so I've actually missed the last 2 weeks. So glad to be getting back into it again. The first 3 that I do are all about the retail side of the business, really getting started, your first few weeks, that sort of thing, building the customer base. 4 and 5 are about sharing this opportunity, building up the residual income side of the business. And then tonight, 6, 7, and 8, tonight, next week, and the week after, are all about the personal development side of the business. The kind of the other skills that you need to work on, other than learning how to post a catalogue to a letterbox, how to post on Facebook, and those sorts of things, but the personal skills, I guess you'd call it. So, what's next in your business? So if you know, as you can see there, if you know how to put catalogs out, you know how to post some things on Facebook, you know how to build up your customer base, and if you start to do a little bit of team building, I was speaking to, I know Mac earlier, was just saying how Rachel had a good start. So Mac clearly knows how to find and sponsor somebody into his team and help them get off to a great start. What other skills do we need in order to build our business? And that's what we're going to cover, basically. And what we're covering in detail is, firstly, follow the system. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The way this business works best is if you copy what your successful upline, what your sponsor or their sponsor is doing, they're successful, copy what they're doing. And there's a little bit of essential understanding, and I want to kind of make sure that you're aware of just 2 or 3 areas in the business that it's worth making sure you understand that you know in a bit of detail. And then I want to introduce you really to personal development. Now, I know some of you have been in this business for a while and already kind of passionate about personal development. It's certainly something that I feel really strongly about, and I've been putting more and more of my time into my own personal development and trying to encourage my team to do the same the longer I've been in the business. So I'm just going to introduce you to a few books that I recommend. So, when you're at school, we're all taught that, you have to be individual, you have to kind of do your own work, you're not allowed to copy what anybody else is doing, and it's classed as cheating. But at Kleeneze, it's completely the opposite. If you find somebody who's doing something well, you copy what they're doing, and that's the fastest route to success. So we often talk about, and you'll hear lots of people talking about the system. What is that system that you should follow? Well, obviously, it varies a little bit depending on whose team you're in, because systems kind of are created by the leaders in the business. So you learn the system on these webinars. If you come to these webinars every Wednesday night, or you watch the recordings, if you miss one, then you'll be learning what the system is. And Kleeneze has been in its current form for about 20 years. There's been significant changes over the last couple of years with all the Facebook side of the business and the online kind of advertising and sharing and that sort of thing. But the basic way of kind of retailing using catalogs or online, sharing the opportunity, has been pretty much as it is now for 20 odd years. So as I've said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. However, it's okay to think of new ideas as well. Because if it wasn't for new ideas that Andy Boswell and a few other people had looked at a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have Facebook. So certainly worth viewing new ideas. And I think one example of a new idea are the white label websites that have come out. It's really, really exciting to see how that goes, because it's something brand new in the business. So find someone who is successful in your business and copy them. And that could be your sponsor. It might be their upline, or it might be because people leave the business, and you might think that you don't really have anybody that you want to copy in your immediate upline that you know. So you will also meet successful people at meetings. We were just talking before we started today about a fantastic opportunity meeting up in China, Richard, up in the northwest, that I've been to just the once, but And I know a few of you have been to a few times. That's a fantastic place. And there are similar meetings all over the country, workshops, and obviously at Birmingham as well, where you will meet successful people. And you should go out of your way. You might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but you should go out of the way to introduce yourself to people at those meetings. Get to know them, because sharing things with people who might be cross-line with you is a fantastic way to gain inspiration and information on how to build your business. Now, there's a few things that I think it's worth making sure that you understand as you build your business. So, firstly, it's a good idea to understand the concept of network marketing. When you first start off in this business, you don't really need to understand what network marketing is all about. You can kind of make reasonable income delivering catalogs or posting things on Facebook. But the concept of network marketing is a way to build a residual income by duplicating a really simple system, by sharing that. Is massive, and it's such a big opportunity, and I don't think that enough people in our business really understand the power of it. So I'm going to recommend a couple of things to you. If you don't read any other books or listen to any other CDs, take a look at these two. So there's one called The 45-Second Presentation by Don Taylor. That's a great book. Have a look at that one. And then there's a CD. I'm going to come back to these in a few minutes. There's an audio CD. This is the first one that I ever listened to, and it's fantastic, and I still love listening to it now. Called Building Your Network Marketing Business by Jim Rohn. Now, the next thing that I think you need to understand, so obviously the network marketing industry itself and how that works is fantastic, and those two books are not to do with Kleeneze at all, they're just to do with the network marketing industry. But understanding the Kleeneze pay plan is really useful as well. And you don't need to understand the entire pay plan. I think there are one or two people in the whole business that do. But you should at least understand the next couple of steps ahead of you. So making sure that you understand how your commission works. It says 21% there. Obviously, the 15% on the K-Life range, or most of the K-Life range, 21% on everything else. Make sure you understand what the bonuses are, the volume bonuses that you get paid at the end of every period based on the orders that you place and the orders that your team have placed, starting off at 10%, up to 13, 15, 18, 21, and 24%, which is when you become a gold distributor. So if there's anything there that I've just said that you're thinking, oh, I'm not quite sure what Chris means by that, then you should have a chat with your sponsor or your upline, just to clarify what that is, because these are the targets that you should be setting yourself at the beginning. And then beyond that, once you've hit 24% in gold, make sure you understand what you need to do to become a senior distributor or an executive distributor or a senior executive distributor, and so on, up. So you don't need to understand the entire pay plan, but make sure you know what your next couple of steps are. And then a really important understanding, and this is more of a kind of a mindset change when you're in this business. And sometimes I think when you first start off a new job, you'll often be told, well, there's some skills that you can learn, and the better you get at those skills, the more you will learn if you become really good at a particular skill. And that's true to a certain extent in our business, but more than anything else, being successful in this business is a numbers game. Just very, very simply, on the retail side, the more catalogs you put out, the more customers you will find, and the more income you will get. You could learn amazing skills of how to better put a catalogue through a letterbox, or how to present your catalogues in a better way. Should you have this one on the front or that one on the front? You could work out lots of things about that. But at the end of the day, if you're putting 50 catalogues a week out, or you're putting 1,000 catalogues a week out, then the more catalogues will definitely lead to more income. And it's very, very similar with sponsoring. Once you learn the basic skills in recruiting people into the business, which is having some information to send to them, knowing what to say to them, knowing how to sign them up and getting them off to a good start, the more leads you generate, the more team members you will get, and the bigger your income is. So understanding that the numbers are really, really important will really lead you to a good sort of foundation, right, in your business. Okay, personal development. personal development is an interesting concept. If you haven't come across it before, and I guess I would say I had no idea what personal development was when I started this business. I've been in the professional world, in kind of IT support, in finance businesses, insurance, and so on for 20 odd, 30 odd years. And we went on courses to learn new IT systems, and courses to learn how to be a good manager for people who are moving up into the management side. But the personal development side wasn't really something that I stuck a name on and understood what I was doing, if I was doing any of it. But there's some, as you get more and more into this business, I think this is the most important part of it. And there's some little quotes that you learn, and I just can't, I use them myself all the time. You'll hear me repeat a lot of these over the different webinars that I run. So one little example is, if you only do what you know you should do, you can achieve anything. So what does that mean? Well, you know, if you've been in the business for a little while, how to put catalogs out, how to post things on Facebook, how to generate leads, how to call people and discuss the business, explain the business to them a little bit, and then how to support people to get them off to a great start. So once you know that, there's nothing stopping you from becoming the next Bob Webb, except that you might not do what you know you should do. Maybe you're feeling a bit tired. Maybe you're a bit worried about what the next person might say on the end of the phone. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I haven't got time for that. I've got all this other stuff in my life to do. But by thinking about the fact that you know what you need to do, it's just a case of doing it. That's a really kind of powerful way of viewing things. And Jim Rohn, one of my favorite speakers, says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, which again is talking about personal development. We can all improve our way of doing things, our way of speaking to people, our attitude, our positive approach, the way we deal with the negative things that happen in life and in our business. And we can all work on ourselves. And I believe you should become a sponge for information. You should be looking for new information, ways to improve yourself all the time. And a personal development program, if you like, consistently doing it regularly, I would say is the most valuable skill set you can learn in this business. And you learn it really easily. You can learn it in a variety of different ways. And that's really important because some people learn things better by reading them, some by watching, some by discussing with other people. So you need to work out what works best for you. But whether it's reading a book, watching videos, listening to an audio program, or joining in on a webinar, and webinar 8 in a couple of weeks talks about personal development in a bit more detail. And also go to as many meetings as you can. I'm a big believer in, I try and get to as many meetings as I can every period. Don't just go to your local opportunity meeting. Get to the workshops. Obviously you guys are all on webinars like this, but encourage your team to get onto these, because you never know when you will find your next golden nugget. And what I mean by that is you can hear somebody, your sponsor, your upline, telling you, oh, you should do this, or try doing this, or this might help. And they might say that over and over again, and you're sort of thinking, yeah, you keep telling that. And then you go to a meeting, and somebody says something that all of a sudden just clicks with you, because they say it in a different way or in a different context. And suddenly you see things in a new light, and you think, oh, God, yeah, I don't know why I'd never thought about that. And you come away inspired and really raring to go. And it's actually probably the same thing that you've heard before, but you just hear it from somebody who's talking in a different way or inspiring you in a different way. So it's really important to get to as many of these meetings as you can, not just for the information that you might hear, but for the inspiration that you'll receive as well. So in terms of starting some personal development or extending your personal development if you're already doing it, and I do believe that personal development will never ever end. As long as you're keen to learn, you will continue to grow personally, and your business will grow as well. There's a big list here. I'm not going to go through all these different books. The ones in blue that I've highlighted there are my personal favorites at the moment, and they change all the time. I'm constantly looking for new books and reading new things. So please don't feel these are the only ones you should read. Speak to your sponsor, because they will, I'm sure, recommend things as well. I'm just going to go through a couple of those in a little bit more detail now. So I talked about this one earlier. Jim Rohn has this fantastic CD called Building Your Network Marketing Business, which is basically his philosophies about network marketing. I just find Jim such an easy person to listen to. He kind of reminds me of a kind of a long-lost American grandfather or something like that. Jim sadly passed away a few years ago. I wish he was still with us because I'd love to go and see him in person. However, you can still hear him and see him on YouTube and listening to him on these CDs. I'd certainly recommend that. And if you prefer reading or you just want something different, then this is a great book by Jim, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness. I just love the title of that. Anything that talks about wealth and happiness, I thought, oh yeah, I need to study this. So this is a great book. It talks about goal setting. It talks about investment, not just spending all of your money, but how you should invest it. It talks about life philosophies, which is something that's really, really important. And again, I talk about that a bit more in one of the other webinars coming up. Right, there's another couple of books which I recommend. These two, I've kind of copied them, put them together because they're the very same concept, really. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, who actually spoke at the New York conference. Those of you who were there, I know Peter and Myrna had a lot of their team there as well. So that was I'm sure they enjoyed listening to Jeff Olson. And Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Compound Effect. And the gist of both of these is it's not the big decisions that determine your success or your failure. It's the little decisions that you make every day. So just as a little example, there's a little picture there. Suppose you're wanting to lose weight and become a bit healthier. Every day at 11 o'clock, you sort of have a little snack. You could either eat an apple or you could eat a chocolate bar. Now, if on the first day you decide to eat the chocolate bar, you don't suddenly wake up the next day massively overweight. And equally, if you have the apple, you don't suddenly wake up healthier and fitter and ready to run a marathon. So you might think, oh, well, that doesn't make any difference. I'll have a chocolate bar again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. But what happens is, over a period of time, gradually, the vitamins in the apple or the fats in the chocolate start to have their effect, and you start to become a little bit less healthy or a little bit healthier and fitter. And just those little decisions every day start to gradually compound up till you start to notice a significant difference. And it's exactly the same in your finance decisions, in your business decisions, in your relationship decisions. So a couple of great books there. I really like those. Okay, the next one. This is a kind of classic, really, of its time. It was written in around about the 1930s, I think, by a chap called Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was written around the time of the big American kind of steel industry, where Dale was like a salesman going around to these big kind of owners of large steel mills. They're trying to sell whatever the product was he was selling, not having much joy doing that. And then he kind of worked out, he was actually asked and decided to kind of work out how can he do this better. It wasn't just to get sales. And what he found basically was, rather than just going in and trying to sell things to people, if he went in and took an interest in the person that was there, found out a little bit about them before, asked them about their family or their favorite sports team or whatever it might be, and started to take an interest in what interested them, then all of a sudden at the end of it, because he had that rapport with people and he'd taken an interest in them, they were much more interested in finding out what it was he was there for. So, and he found his sales went through the roof simply because he didn't go there to try to sell to people. He went there to try and understand what interested people. So the gist of that is, be nice to people. It's amazing what you get in return. And that's a really good book. I really like that one. So that's a good one to have a look at. This is another one. Now, I think this is actually changed in format. I've got a feeling I tried to order this the other couple of weeks ago and it's changed slightly. But have a look for this. It's very similar. The new one version, I think, is very similar to this. It's called Design Your Best Year Ever by Darren Hardy. And it's basically a workbook. It's not just a book that you read. It basically says, right, sit down, and it doesn't have to be the beginning of January that you get this. You can start in December till the next December, or start in February to February. It's kind of how to have the best 12 months. And it basically, you think about what your goals are, what you want over the next 12 months. You break those goals down into monthly chunks and then kind of weekly targets and daily steps and activities. And it's just a great way to get from where you are now to where you want to be in 12 months, but in manageable steps. So I really like that one. That's a good book as well. Now this one, I'm actually just reading this again now. I read this a couple of years ago, really like this, The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. And the gist of it is kind of trying to understand how your brain works. We've all had times when you get frustrated and angry and emotional and upset, and you maybe say something that you regret. But when you look back on it, you think, oh, I wish I wouldn't be like that sometimes. And Steve Peters talks about this in terms of our brain is made up of 3 parts. So one part he calls the chimp. That's the kind of the emotional, quick thinking, reactive thing that sometimes gets you into trouble. The other part, which he calls the real you, your human part, is the kind of the logical person that if you look back on things, this is the way that you really want to be. And then there's another part of the brain, which is kind of all of your habits and the things that you do kind of on a day-to-day basis, almost without thinking about them. But it's an excellent book for learning how to deal with times when you think you might get upset, or recognizing when those kind of things happen and dealing with them in a much more productive way. So if you find that emotionally you're a bit up and down and you get kind of cross with things or frustrated and you feel that you'd like to be able to deal with those emotions in a better way, that's a great book to do that, help you with that. Okay guys, gosh, that seemed to go through quicker than I was expecting, but I'm just wrapping up now, so I just want to make sure that you're all still wide awake and we're listening in there. Can you remember what I said? There's a quote from Jim Rohn, which I asked you, which was, work harder on yourself than you do on your, what? Can you remember? Anybody want to share that with us? Natasha says job. Yep. Anybody else got any thoughts? Glenn? Yeah. Katrina? Fantastic, guys. You're all wide awake. Pleased to hear that. Okay, of the books that I went through, I'd be really interested to know from those of you either if there's any that you haven't read that you think, oh yeah, I like the sound of that one, that you'd like to go away and get next, or equally if there's any that you have read that you'd like to recommend to the other people on the webinar tonight. Which of those books appeals to you most? Anybody got any thoughts? Anybody want to share? Yeah, Katrina, that's a fantastic book. As I say, I'm reading it again now and I'm getting more out of it the second time, which is often the way. Yeah, thank you, Huel. Oh, good. So glad you both thought that. Think and Grow Rich, Mac. That's a really good book. I didn't have that one on here. That's Nelson. I can't remember the guy's name now, but yeah, that's a really good book. Again, that's similar era to yeah, good point, Jim. Similar era to the Dale Carnegie book I mentioned, that one, Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, Eric Worre, Go Pro. That's a fantastic book. I really should have that in my list. I'll need to update my slides to have that one. That's an excellent book. For those of you who haven't heard of that, that's kind of the one that the company recommends. It's just a fantastic introduction to how to be a professional network marketer. Professional meaning good at what you do, not necessarily that you want to do it full time, although you may well do. Yeah, fish market in Seattle. Oh, sounds interesting. I haven't heard about that one. Yeah, thank you for that, Natasha. That's great. Good, good. Oh, well, if you can, Graham, if you can share that with us before the end of the webinar, that'd be fantastic. I'm always interested in learning new stuff. So thanks, guys. I hope you appreciate that. So basically, all that we went through this evening, a very quick introduction, more hopefully just to get you deciding that if you're not currently reading a book or listening to a CD in your car, then I hope you will seriously consider it, because I think it will make a massive difference to your business. So firstly, make sure that you're following the system. Speak to your sponsor and your upline if you're not quite sure what to do. I think because you're all on here, you're obviously all kind of considering and doing some of this anyway. A bit about the essential understanding, making sure you understand a bit about the business, the industry, a bit about the Kleeneze pay plan, so you know where you're going, what your goals are, and then hopefully getting started on a little program of personal development over the next days and weeks to get you started. But please don't stop. one of my favorite phrases is, you might have left school, or sorry, you might have finished school, but you should never finish your education. I think it's a great motto to live by. Okay guys, so that's the end of this evening's quick webinar. Next week we're talking about goals and attitude. Goal setting is a powerful part of our business, so please don't miss out on that. If you're not setting goals and working towards your goals and breaking the goals down into manageable chunks, then you should be. So just to finish off, I'm just going to stop the recording of this